Bang! The Chargers went big game hunting and they didn't miss as they were reportedly set to hire Mike McDaniel as their next offensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons now, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 podcast network, sports podcast network. David, they did it. They landed their guy.
Yes, indeed. Mike McDaniel is going to be the new offensive coordinator for the Chargers. And finally, Justin Herbert has some real hope.
He really does. And for the Chargers, their offense has real hope, right? It was one thing to let go of Greg Roman. It's another thing to go and hire Mike McDaniel as someone who we just didn't know if Jim Harbaugh would hire. And those are kind of the levels to this, right? Jim Harbaugh doing whatever it takes to win. The Chargers obviously doing right by Justin Herbert and giving him an offensive coordinator that is worthy of his talents, right? And also you have the added parts of, does that mean Frank Smith is coming along for the offensive line? The guy who led the best offensive line in the Justin Herbert era? Does that mean, that obviously Mike McDaniel sees something in this young group of skill position players that the Chargers have? Does that mean that Jesse Minter's more likely to come back? We have a lot to get into today. That one might be a little less likely, but it just starts, David, with the Chargers landing their guy. And I mean, they are reportedly set to hire him. There's been some hedging about this report. You don't usually see the type of names putting this out there unless it's almost certainly a done deal. And the last we heard, they were all out to dinner after having breakfast and him being with the Chargers all day. And the longer it got, was like, hey, we haven't heard anything, right? Like, this has been really quiet, but this is what Daniel Popper had put out on it. The Chargers are expected to hire Mike McDaniel as their next OC, per me and Diana Rossini. McDaniel and officials have been meeting throughout the day and are having dinner tonight, per sources. Nothing official yet, but all positive signs. And it feels like this is going to happen. I know Tom Pelissero also said, hey, there's still the Raiders job and the Ravens job potentially, but Diana Rossini is saying that Mike McDaniels, that is texting other coaches saying he's moving to the West Coast to coach Justin Herbert. And this is just gigantic news.
Man, it's pure elation, right? I mean, after what we've had to watch the last few years with Greg Roman, and you kind of felt like you had some shackles on Justin Herbert. Like he was not reaching his full potential. He wasn't put in position to reach his full potential. The offense was so mundane. It was so predictable. There wasn't a lot of mystery. It wasn't a lot of things for a defense to try to diagnose. The Chargers'
creativity in
was
general,
boring. Yeah, it was just boring. It was just not an offense befitting the talents and the arm strength of a Justin Herbert. And now he has a play caller that's at the cutting edge of innovation, that attacks down the field, that really scores points, which is something that the Chargers desperately need. I just think like it really just it's a pure shot of adrenaline, a pure shot of hope that gets injected into your veins as a Chargers fan, knowing that your quarterback finally has an offensive coordinator that you feel truly in your heart is going to maximize what he brings to the table.
And I think just after the shocking way your season ends, right? You put up that performance, you put up 3 points in a playoff game after putting up 12 in 2024. And it's just like, man, it feels like you're so far away from hope. And we weren't even sure that Jim Harbaugh was going to fire Greg Roman, right? Let alone go way out of his way and do something kind of totally out of character and bring in someone like a Mike McDaniel. But like, I don't even know if we've seen what a Mike McDaniel offense can be, because the biggest one we've seen him in, right, was with Tua Tagovailoa. Like, now he has, someone unlike that he's ever had, and the Chargers, most importantly, get the top offensive mind available over the Eagles, over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are reportedly super interested in bringing in Mike McDaniel, and also instantly the best offense coordinator that Justin Herbert has ever had, and also, got someone who's been a head coach, so he can be the head coach of the offense and run it as he sees fit. But this is also someone that's kind of the best of both worlds, because usually or we thought that if the Chargers wanted to really modernize their offense and get up to kind of the cutting edge of what teams are doing in the NFL, they might have to take like a Nate Shieldhouse or someone who's unproven and hasn't called plays at this level. You're getting someone who's done it. You're getting someone who's run some of the top offenses in the NFL during his time as offensive coordinator for the 49ers and their run game coordinator, but also with the Dolphins and Tua when he led the league in passing yards. So I think that is the other part of this, is checking all the boxes. Not only are you getting creativity, you're getting a proven commodity. You're getting someone who's done it well at 2 different stops already, and there's just seeming like this is kind of the perfect scenario and why we were so high on them trying to get this guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that you know has been able to do it. He's been able to take, what's been put in principle and put it in practice and go out there and get results. In 2022, he's 6th in total offense. In 2023, number 1 in total offense, 2nd in scoring. That's when Tua led the league in passing yards with over 4,600 passing yards. And, if you're looking at the running concepts or rushing availability, he's really good at that too. I mean, even this year in a down year, Devon Achane averaged 5.7 yards per carry. That is truly phenomenal. Like, that's the type of running game that we all want for Justin Herbert, that we all know would do wonders for him in the play action game, where you have a running game that you truly have to worry about. That is a problem. That is creative, that you don't really know where it's coming from, how it's going to hit you, who's going to be handling the football, right? All of that are all elements to this Mike McDaniel offense, where you should be very excited about what it's going to do, not only for the passing game, but for the running game as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is kind of the other reason why it feels like such a good fit, because like the Shanahan system is rooted in the running game. Like, you go back to, Kyle's dad back in the day when he was giving the Chargers fits as the Denver Broncos head coach. Like that, it was all about running the football and helping out the quarterback. And look what, Mike Shanahan's offense was able to do for someone like a John Elway when they gave him a running game and an offense that worked around him, right? It ended up in Super Bowls. And like now it just feels like this was kind of the one key thing missing, someone who can do all of those things, plus adapt to his surroundings, adapt around what was really never a good offensive line with the Miami Dolphins. But also I think we have to tip our caps to Jim Harbaugh himself, because I just didn't know if he had this in him, right? Like we literally talked about on yesterday's show, like the title was Lock the Door behind Mike McDaniel once he gets in there. But later on in the show, we talked about it does still feel like, though, even though he's saying he is willing to kind of evolve, even though he's saying that he's willing to kind of go with any different philosophy, even though we still felt like it was going to be a Jim Harbaugh type of a team, that maybe he would just turn around and hire Arthur Smith, right? Because that was like a slightly more modernized version of what Greg Roman was doing, and something that felt like it fit what Jim Harbaugh's teams have typically been. But to his credit, they said they were casting a wide net. They said they were going to keep an open mind. And what did they do? They landed the top option available. And I think Jim Harbaugh deserves a huge hat tip for that.
He does. Jim Harbaugh has only had one offensive coordinator for his entire NFL coaching tenure, and that's is true. Greg Roman. That's it. Nobody else. And so I think obviously in your mind, you would think, well, he's going to probably try to go with somebody who has a similar type of mindset. But to his credit, he did say, hey, we need to modernize this thing. We need to change. We need to diversify how we look at this offense. And this is the guy, apparently, who they wanted to bring in. This is from Albert Breer. Basically, he says, Jim Harbaugh wanted to marry elements of the Shanahan offense to the rugged physical identity to his teams that his teams have always had. No one better to pull that off than Mike McDaniel. And so I completely agree. I just feel like you're getting somebody who understands the importance of running the ball, but also attacking down the field with a old school type of head coach. And I think with Jim Harbaugh, you absolutely want to give him all the credit in the world for saying, hey, what I've been doing on the offensive side has not been working. So I need to try something different. And this right here is as different as it gets.
Absolutely. And something we talked about before the show, credit to the owners as well, because like it's one thing to spend the big money on Jim Harbaugh and let him get his first initial staff, right? But after you don't get a playoff win in 2 years, right? Are you still willing to pay, what needs to be paid? And if they're going to land him, which it feels like everything but the signature has happened so far, you have to be able to open up the pocketbooks. So credit to them, for doing what it would take, blank check style to potentially land him. But yeah, I mean, this is awesome. And also like Albert Breer's right. Like if you can actually marry kind of Jim Harbaugh's physical, rugged style with the innovation that Mike McDaniels brings to the table, yeah, you're talking about an offense that absolutely could be one to be trifled with. But the Chargers made this move for one big reason, and that is Justin Herbert. And this is great news for him, but also a level of added pressure. So we're getting into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood are all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where DripDrop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. And also, it tastes fantastic, which is an important part, because if it tastes bad, I'm not going to use it either way. So I love that about DripDrop, and I love that it uses a precise ratio of electrolytes and glucose for rapid absorption, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. DripDrop's science-based formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your order. Go to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at DripDrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. What if sports were like trade markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood Prediction Markets. It's not you against the house. It's you against participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Every event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. Dave, let's talk about the biggest part of this, right? And the biggest part is Justin Herbert. And I think that's the one thing we've always kind of wanted for Justin Herbert, is someone that could kind of match him as a quarterback and bring an offensive mind that we felt like could fully unlock that. And it wouldn't be the first time we thought that, right? Like, we thought that with Kellen Moore. And that year, I don't think the offense was really the problem, or at least the play calling was the biggest problem in 2023. Obviously, Justin Herbert breaking fingers on both hands was the biggest problem that year. And he had successful seasons with Shane Steichen, with the Joe Lombardi as well. But I don't think any of those guys are on the level that Mike McDaniel is. And I think that when you do this, you're doing this for Justin Herbert. And I think maybe for the first time, it feels like the Chargers are making an investment into an offensive coordinator that is actually worthy of Justin Herbert's talents.
100%. I feel like this is definitely an effort to try to maximize what Justin Herbert does best. I think you saw with Tua Tagovailoa, with Mike McDaniel, he was able to attack deep down the field, even with Tua's obvious arm strength limitations. Justin Herbert has no such limitations. You're not going to see receivers having to wait for the ball to arrive. They're going to be able to run under it and be able to keep moving down the football field. I think that's one of the big things I'm excited for, is a return to attacking down the field in the passing game more regularly. Also, more easy buttons, right? Just getting receivers open at a much more regular pace to be able to get the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands quickly. His quick game has been very, very effective. It's very hard to stop. Also, the rushing concepts, getting him a running game that will be able to help him out, be able to take some off his plate. All very big reasons why I'm very excited for what this is going to do for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because Mike McDaniel had to make an offense that couldn't rely on Tua making plays outside of the pocket. And now Justin Herbert, for the first time, will have an offense that won't totally rely on him being outside of the pocket and playing hero ball. So I think it is great for both sides, but like it just getting someone to help him out a little bit, because that's the thing, is like, even you go back and look at some of the wins they had last year, and I mean, obviously them signing Mike McDaniels potentially shows you just how, much the league kind of thinks of Justin Herbert with the jobs that he turned down, potentially head coaching jobs he's turning down to take this job. Because man, how many quarterbacks get double-digit wins with that team they had last season without Joe All and Rashawn Slater. It's not many, right? But the problem is he had to do everything himself, and he took the damage because of that, ended up getting injured because of that and breaking his hand. And you're trying to scale that back as much as possible. Like, yes, you still want him to use the dynamic parts of his game to help this offense reach whatever level, but you don't want him to have to carry the ball and be the team's leading rusher for the offense to work. And too many times last year, that's what it felt like, right? Like, that is what it was. In all 3 playoff games that he's had so far, he either had Joe Lombardi or Greg Roman, 2 guys that got fired. But I just think this is just such a huge commitment to doing what's best for Justin Herbert and getting someone to help him so he doesn't have to do all of those things. You talked about the easy buttons. That's what McDaniels does, right? Like, schematic advantages. I mean, how many times last year were you just like, man, Greg Roman totally fooled everybody on that one? I can't remember every specific instant, but I know I could have counted them on one hand. So, like, it just didn't happen very often enough. And that is kind of what you see. You see these open, windows to throw into. You see all of these things where it's just schematically they know what the other team is doing and they're going to expose it. And we just never saw it. We saw receivers running into each other. But what this also comes along with Justin Herbert is it's your 5th offensive coordinator going into year 7, right? There's already people out there that are saying whatever they're saying about you, and now you can add on to it. Hey, maybe the offensive coordinators weren't the problem. Maybe Justin Herbert was the problem. So now you have somebody who's done it at an extremely high level, and you're going to take even more of the blame if you can't get it done. And at least now you feel like you have someone that you don't have to worry about that as much with, because, man, this offense should be really good.
Yeah, and it's not only for, what it does for Justin Herbert, but it's also what it does for his weapons as well. I feel like you look at what this could potentially mean for Rondé Gadsden II and what he did with Darren Waller and the production that he got out of him after going into retirement and leaving and being able to come back. Like, I felt like it's going to be something that's going to benefit Rondé Gadsden. Also, Ladd McConkey. I feel like putting him back in the forefront of the offense and really accentuating him and what he does best and putting him in that star role that he so richly deserves is only going to benefit Justin Herbert and this offense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think that, as much as this is a huge improvement from Greg Roman to, Mike McDaniel, and I saw some people say it's almost like you're going from Tua to Justin Herbert, which I think is obviously relevant here. But I'd say, like, the pressure's been on, right? Like, and you're doing this to hope that this is the guy that can kind of get Justin Herbert to a level where he can build trust back in his offense. Because if there's one thing, he didn't play good in that game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he did. But what was abundantly clear is he didn't trust his offensive line. He didn't trust his offense, and he wasn't well prepared for that game, period. And the players told you that much, right?
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're going to have those issues with Mike McDaniel. And it felt hopeless. It felt like who could be the guy? If there was a guy, right, it feels like Mike McDaniel could be that guy to have the relationship with Justin Herbert, to build the confidence in himself that when those big moments come, he is ready to answer the call. And I think that is so important. But the good news that comes along with this potentially, though, is Frank Smith could be coming with him. His offensive coordinator in Miami used to be the Chargers offensive line coach before getting swooped away by Mike McDaniel to Miami. Now he could be coming back because he is currently jobless, and the Chargers have a very open offensive line coach position.
They surely do, and obviously we know time and time again, relationships always show up when coaches are building out their coaching staff in the NFL. It's just very prevalent no matter where you look at any franchise in the NFL. The Chargers are no different. They know who he is. They know what he brings to the table, and I feel like it would be a good move. The Chargers' best offensive line that Justin Herbert has had, as you mentioned, is definitely when Frank Smith was the offensive line coach. So bringing in somebody who has some familiarity and who, has some familiarity with the new offensive coordinator is always going to be a good thing. You want to have guys that can speak the same language that you speak and be able to decipher that out to the players.
100%. I mean, there's a reason why we talked about Frank Smith as a legitimate guy and candidate to take this job. And it was, if you don't get Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith might be the guy, right? Now you get both of them potentially. And not only that, who better? I know everyone's worried about Mike McDaniel taking off after one season, right? this could be an heir apparent situation. You can have the guy who's well-versed in this offense 4 seasons in as a potential option for you to keep things going next year. Someone who's been super successful already as a Chargers coach. So, like, a lot of reasons to like it. There's a reason Justin Herbert had 5,000 yards in 2021 is because the Chargers were at least able to keep him up long enough to do it. So I think that would be a huge hire for the Chargers. It just makes way too much sense. And, you know, as I'm sure has been discussed in these meetings, give him whoever he wants. If he wants to build a new offensive staff, build him a new offensive staff. But Shane Day actually might be safe because they actually worked together in San Francisco. He was the quarterback's coach. Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator. So he could be familiar and help kind of smooth things over. And you're right, with the offensive line, Frank Smith could help them learn this new scheme and really help kind of ease the process there, because it could be a pretty big difference as far as the running game goes. But we still have more to get into because you touched on it a little bit. But man, I'm already daydreaming about what this guy can do with Ladd McConkey and Oronde Gadsden. And could he be the first guy to use Quentin Johnston potentially? We're going to get all of that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel because the NFL playoffs are live and there's only 3 games left, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets that you like the most, and the boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling, and I'm going to be daydreaming this weekend about Mike McDaniel and the Chargers potentially playing some of these teams they might have to play next year when they get to the 2026 playoffs, if it gets that far. And the Mike Vrabel Patriots were coming for you. They're 5.5-point favorites over the Broncos. Seahawks, can you contend with a legit juggernaut not like that now? We're going to see. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all that you need. If I needed to hire someone for this show and replace David, I know where I'd be going. I'd be going to Indeed. So instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Maybe that's how they landed Mike McDaniel. But according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now to support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. David, one of the great things now that we get is fantasizing over what Mike McDaniels can do with this offense. And I think that it's very easy to think of why, not just Justin Herbert wise, but roster wise, why Mike McDaniel would be intrigued by this, because the Chargers have a really young, cheap set of skill position players. And I think they have the talent for it, right? And I think the nice thing is maybe not all of these guys would have worked perfectly in the offense that they were running in Miami, right? But the good news is I feel like you have faith in Mike McDaniel to adapt and make it work and intertwine his beliefs with whatever Jim Harbaugh wants, his fingerprints to be on this offense, and have the collection of talent to do something really special. Because like I said, I see what the Chargers have now, and it feels like they have so many underutilized players offensively, and it feels like all of those guys can get the spotlight now. And I think this is like a very, very good day for someone like a Ladd McConkey.
It really, really is. And that's why I was so excited about it. I had to talk about it a little early because Ladd McConkey is a beast, and a little bit of a down year this year, but I feel like Mike McDaniel is the right guy to be able to put him back in position to be the one that the offense kind of funnels through on the offensive passing game.
Yeah, maybe
side,
Ladd McConkey should lead this team in targets. There's a crazy concept, Greg Roman.
Yeah, That's a no-brainer. That should obviously always happen. He's way too talented not to be a featured element of the offense every single week in and week out. But also, I'm excited for what it does for Omarion Hampton as well. I feel like he's at his best when he's attacking the edges of the defense, and I feel like that's something that we see a lot in the Mike McDaniel rushing attacks. So I definitely want to see that. Quentin Johnston on those quick hitters when they're trying to get the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands quickly. You know what he turns into with the ball in his hands in the open field. He is like a running back. He's hard to tackle. He, is really elusive, and he's just a player that continues to get better and better, as well as Trey Harris as well. I really like Trey. He did a lot of dirty work early this season to be able to earn more and more opportunities, and I think come 2026, he could be a guy who is a big part of a brand new offense with the Chargers.
Yeah, and I mean, considering the size of the wide receivers in Miami, you know that Mike McDaniel is at least a little bit intrigued by what Darius Davis could even be, right, with that speed. But also, Keandre Lambert-Smith is as a 4-3 guy. Like Ladd McConkey, even though it didn't look like it at times last year, he was a 4-3 guy. Obviously not what he's known for as a burner, but it won't be able to be the same offense. You don't have the same team speed. Like Omarion Hampton is a very, very different back than Devon Achane, right? But if you're talking about going to come more of a wide zone scheme, like think about every time you saw a seam for Omarion Hampton to run through where he could only be arm tackled and how quickly he got through that and what he looked like once he got through that initial line. I mean, if he got through the initial line, he was getting 7, 8 plus yards, maybe even potential 40, because he is going to break the first tackler, especially if he gets ahead of steam. And maybe this actually helps with that a little bit. I mean, definitely what the Chargers were doing last year, we're not helping that. But Quentin Johnston, not the same as like Justin Herbert, but it still feels like there's more to the Quentin Johnston thing than we have seen so far. Like it still feels like, with his third offensive coordinator, we still haven't seen someone use him the best way he could be used, which is just getting him in yak situations, finding a way to get the ball in his hands, getting him off the line of scrimmage, motioning him, giving him a head start. And this is the guy who coached Deebo Samuel, right? And I'm not comparing those guys as players, but with Deebo Samuel, it was simple. Like, if we have to hand it off to him in the backfield, if we have to motion him, line him up outside, put him in the slot, however we can do it, we will do it. And they found great ways to do it, right? Find a way to get Quentin Johnston ahead of steam and the ball in his hands instead of just using him as a decoy deep route on every play. It feels like they could, man. And it'll be very telling, I think, with Mike McDaniel potentially in tow now, what they decide to do with that fifth-year option, because they're going to have to decide on that this offseason on whether they want to pick it up for Quentin Johnston at $17.5 million. If they pick it up, you can be sure that Mike McDaniel has a really, really good plan for what he thinks Quentin Johnston can be in this new look Chargers offense. And it'll be also interesting to see kind of how this changes, Joe Ortiz's strategy in free agency, in the draft. We talked about it so many times, how accommodating he is to the coaching staff and trying to get them players that they like, right? Which is why you see a Bradley Bozeman coming to town, which is why you see a Hayden Hurst coming to town, the Gus Edwards of the world, the J.K. Dobbins of the world. And there's a reason why it's worked out much better defensively than it has offensively. Like the value plays they've made on defense, the Benjamin St. Juste, the Dante Jacksons, the Christian Fultons, the Elijah Moldens, all those guys have paid off in a big way. T.R. Tart, another one. Poona Ford, another one, right? They haven't worked out the same way offensively. They really haven't had a great offensive free agent in 2 years, and that's on Joe Ortiz for sure. But he's trying to get these coaches who they want to, fill out their vision. And the nice thing is they have $100 million in cap space to kind of rebuild the offense in Mike McDaniel's image.
Yeah, and I think obviously they know they need to fix the interior of the offensive line. That's something that needs to be fixed and changed regardless of who the offensive coordinator is. But one thing I can absolutely see is a shift and change in the running back room and how it's constructed. I think with Omarion Hampton, you have that thunder. I can absolutely see them going out and getting more of a lightning type running back, a pass catching type running back that's super elusive in the open field that can really create, be that safety valve pass catching back. I can absolutely see that, and I feel like that's something that's a staple of the Mike McDaniel type offense, just having somebody who's a little bit quicker, a little bit more nimble. Not saying Omarion isn't, but he's definitely more of a bruiser that has some speed once he gets up to speed, but the acceleration isn't the calling card of his game. So getting somebody who can complement that in the backfield, I think is something that's very likely that we could see in this Chargers offense here in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think Warren Hampton is a fine, receiver. Like, I think he was their best receiving back last year, and it feels like they only kind of scratched the surface of that. But yeah, like, I do think just overall speed is going to be something they're putting more of an emphasis on with this new offensive staff coming in, right? And with Mike McDaniel, who immediately upon arrival traded for Tyreek Hill, and they drafted Jalen Waddle immediately, right? So, like, they love speed. I think some of that was to counterbalance Tua and the limitations that he had to a certain extent, because I do think he can adapt, and it could look a lot different with Los Angeles. But at the same time, I do think it could change some things. But some things like the interior of the offensive line, you just have to give him what he wants there. But also, like, now you have a chance to kind of clean house in that room and get guys that fit what Mike McDaniels wants to do, instead of trying to make Mekhi Becton work there, or make Bradley Bozeman work there because Greg Roman loves him, right? Or whatever the case may be. And I think, he overachieves with some of those offensive lines, like I said. But I do think the biggest question now is, does this mean anything as far as Jesse Minter potentially coming back? Because it doesn't feel like it does, but at the same time, like, man, if somehow the Chargers, like, I think a lot of this goes on the Ravens job. And ironically, like, Jesse Minter getting the Ravens job could kind of solidify Mike McDaniel being the Chargers offensive coordinator to a certain extent, because that's the job that's been linked to both of those guys. And it's a job that the last coach had for 15 plus years. So obviously that's going to be a valuable commodity. But man, like, the Chargers would legitimately have the best coordinators in the league next year if they were somehow able to get Jesse Minter back. And man, what a run. Give me 1 year of that. You can let both of them go. Give me 1 year of that. I'll take that and sign up for it right now.
Oh, yeah, I would absolutely love that, just because what it would look like. In your mind, I feel like you have a really good idea of what that would look like. And I think you can look at this one of two ways. It's, okay, well, Mike McDaniel, a potential head coach, is now off the board and is, deciding to be the offensive coordinator, which means other teams would be more likely to try to go get Jesse Minter, one of the, few remaining qualified head coach options. Or this could mean Jesse Minter says, okay, well, I really like what they're doing over there on the offensive side with the Chargers, and now I truly feel like I can go and win a championship and then go be a head coach and have the pick of the litter of the options that are available next year. I think it just depends on how Jesse Minter's viewing this situation.
Yeah, and I truly think the Ravens are the one, right? Like, if he doesn't get the Ravens job, like, I wouldn't want that Browns job if I'm him, man. Like, with no quarterback situation figured out, like, I don't want the Raiders job either, because guess what? They fired a coach in 3 consecutive seasons. Now,
a Hall of Fame coach, too.
Will he get involved in the Buffalo Bills head coaching search? Are they interested in Jesse Minter? That's something to keep an eye on as well, because like we've talked about, there's 2 MVPs out there that currently don't have head coaches. So as those are unfilled, I'm going to be worried that Jesse Minter is going to take off and take one of those jobs, and he absolutely should if he can. But if he doesn't, man, like, this is setting up for a season with the kind of expectations that I don't think we've seen here in a long time, maybe even since like the 2000s, because I think that's, how much hype they'll have going into it, because they just fixed their biggest issue. Greg Roman's out. Mike McDaniel reportedly in as Chargers offensive coordinator. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Hopefully tomorrow we'll see the official news that he has signed the dotted line. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media, at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. If you want even more than that, you can get it now at the Locked On Everydayer Club, where you can get an ad-free audio version of this podcast. No more ads for you in the audio version if you want that, for $5 a month, plus access to the official Locked On Chargers Discord chat, which we're building up right now and is a lot of fun. But man, what a day to be a Chargers fan. It felt like that game against the Patriots had a chance to kind of be like that 63-21 game, right? Where Brandon Staley's ultimate embarrassment lands you Jim Harbaugh. I had those same butterflies today, man, because it looks like that 16-3 embarrassment that they suffered in Foxborough just landed them the top offensive coordinator option in the entire league. And I think there's a lot to be excited about. But make sure you're back here tomorrow for the only daily Chargers podcast out there. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.